mistake, launching a brutal, devastating and illegal war against Ukraine. Since then, thousands of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians have been killed and wounded. The lives of millions of innocent people have been shattered. Putin's attempting to eliminate Ukraine as an independent nation. He's trying to divide the international community and also to undermine our democratic values. We cannot allow that to happen, and Putin must, of course, not succeed. Today, 26 countries, as well as the European Union, have met here in Copenhagen and have sent a clear signal. Ukraine's fight is our fight. We stand together and we stand with Ukraine. We condemn Russia's brutal attack in the strongest possible way, and we will continue to assist Ukraine in its military needs. Today's conference has been about more than just words. Concretely, we have discussed 4 things. How can we secure funding for continued arms productions to Ukraine in the medium and long term? How can we increase arms productions aimed for Ukraine? How can we increase training of Ukrainian soldiers? And how can we move forward when it comes to demining in Ukraine? There's a need for artillery, missiles, and also ammunition. In total, participants today have committed more than 1.5 billion euros to the table for Ukraine. The United Kingdom is setting up a fund in order to gather financing for increased productions of weapons. But money alone will not do the trick, as you say. We need increased productions. I'm grateful to Poland, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic, who have today signaled willingness to expand productions of artillery systems, ammunition, and other equipments. We have also discussed training of Ukrainian soldiers. A number of countries, including Denmark, have today committed to supporting the British-led Operation Interflex that trains Ukrainian recruits in the UK. Finally, we have discussed support for Ukraine in the area of demining. Iceland has taken the leading role in coordinating a concept for demining training mission for Ukraine. And let me thank all the countries, all the participating nations that have been here in Copenhagen today for this conference, and especially for, of course, their strong support. Your participation here today have shown that we strongly support Ukraine, not only now, but also in the future, because their fight is our fight. With these words, I will now pass the word to Alexei Resnikov and afterwards Ben Wallace. Alexei, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Morten. My emotions or my conclusion. I am satisfied with the conference and with the results. A lot of information is classified, so I cannot discuss it openly, but we reached clear initiatives and commitments on demining. We agreed upon long-term and mid-term activity. These terms are also related to armaments production, and I am glad that we all have common sense that there is no time for fatigue. That is marathon. For marathon, you need energy, and frankly speaking, the main energy in this case is money. Our partners know that we need funding, and they articulated readiness to support us financially. To finalize, I would say that light will drive out darkness. And again, I would like to say thank you for leadership, to Morten and to Ben, and for all colleagues who were here and were in this chamber. It's very symbolic. We're also in a special chamber. So I'm looking forward with the optimist, and we will prevail the enemy, and you will see the liberated, very, very, very good country, which is called Ukraine. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you very much. Ben?
Thank you, Morten. Thank you, Alexei. Thank you for hosting us here in Denmark, and it's another great success of the international community coming together to demonstrate, at the very least, that our appetite is not diminished, our appetite is increasing towards helping Ukraine. President Putin would have gambled that come August, come a few months in, we would have all got bored of the conflict and the international community would have gone off in different directions. Well, today is proof of the opposite. We have come out of this meeting with more pledges of finance, more pledges of training, and more pledges of military aid, all designed to help Ukraine win, to help Ukraine stand up for its sovereignty, and indeed to ensure that President Putin's ambitions fail in Ukraine, as they rightly should. I think it's incredibly important that people understand that the fighting is still going on, and it is still seeing the loss of life of both innocent civilians and indeed military personnel of the Ukrainian armed forces, all of whom are fighting bravely on a day-to-day basis. But it is also the case that Russia are starting to fail in many areas. They have failed so far and are unlikely to ever succeed in occupying Ukraine. Their invasion has faltered and constantly been remodified to the extent they are really only focusing in parts of the south and in the east, a long, long way away from their three-day so-called special operation. 3 days are now over 150 days and nearly 6 months in, with huge significant losses of both equipment and indeed Russian personnel. Not a surprise, President Putin was warned by friends and adversaries alike, from presidents and prime ministers, not to do this unwise and illegal thing. He's ignored it, and we're here today to show that 6 months on, we're still as determined as an international community to stand up to him and to stand up to the threat and to help Ukraine re-establish its sovereign territory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Now for some questions. Yes, Danish TV2.
Yes, actually for all of you, this conference with the 1.5 billion euro you were talking about, what exactly difference, Mr. Oleksiy, Mr. Resnikov, can it do for Ukraine? And you also asked for actually fire aircrafts earlier today. You haven't got that, so how is your satisfaction all in all? And for the two other gentlemen, you know, what exactly difference can this fund do for Ukraine?
We made presentation for our colleagues with our requests. They know the list of our requests, so it will be circulated among our partners, and they will decide who is ready to deliver it to Ukraine using this money. Sorry, without details. In operational meaning.
Yeah. But only today, 1.5 billion euros. A number of countries have also signaled a willingness to support. They'll have to go back home to discuss with their parliaments, of course, and we will have a follow-up meeting in September, a follow-up meeting via VTC, and by then we'll be I'm sure we'll see more contributions, and I'm sure that we'll see a much more concrete way when it comes to productions of different types of weapons. And I must say the British fund has really moved this process forward here. It's a huge initiative, likewise the training initiative that UK is now also funding. So Ben, I think you can say a little bit about the difference that the fund actually can do when it comes to direct buying of weapons and productions of weapons.
So first of all, the fund started way back when Australia and Canada actually rang up and said, we'd like to help, but we're a long way away. If we give you some money, can you purchase some stuff? That's how it started. When I met with Morton early on when he started in his job, he said, look, why don't we expand it and have a conference here? So it is an international fund now. We have contributions from Norway, we have contributions from Denmark, we have contributions from across the piece that are approaching today, alone in that fund, nearly €500 million. We've put in £250 million or 300 million euros into that pot. And the difference between this pot, this international fund, and the European Fund. The European Fund is a sort of old for new reimbursement fund, so that if a country gifts its tanks, it can seek through the EU to be reimbursed, so it can buy tanks to replace it, etc. This is really about recognizing where we are in the cycle of support. All of us have, at the beginning of this, went back to our militaries and said, what have you got in the cupboard? What can we donate? What have you got in reserves? As we get towards the end of those capabilities, now is the time that we will have to start basically buying from third countries, or indeed placing orders in factories to increase ammo supply to Ukraine. So, for example, the Ukrainians are using 155 millimeter artillery. We've gifted tens of thousands of shells, but in the next few months and years they'll need many more. So this fund allows us to effectively together, and Denmark will be on it with us as one of the governors of the fund to make sure that we're all purchasing it in accordance with Ukraine's need, and we'll be able to go and buy from wherever they are capacity. And I think that's the difference. One is it won't be as bureaucratic, and it'll be very much sort of used that way. And I think we've got a number of other countries who've said that they are looking or going to commit to put some more money in there. We've had money from, I think, Canada and Australia as well. So it's definitely international, and I think it's going to really help target where Ukraine needs it. Because all of us have stock issues. It's not I've gifted 5,500 NLAWs anti-tank weapons to Ukraine. Today I've announced we've doubled our GMLRS, our M270s, which is the British sort of HIMARS system, plus the similar HIMARS missiles to Ukraine. So that's a doubling today of hardware in that very key strategic sort of capability, and we'll continue to do that. But where we don't have it, we'll go and find it.
Okay, Danish TV 1, actually.
Yes, Mr. Resnikov, do you feel that after today's contributions, you have the military weapons, you have the military tools enough to make this counter-offensive and push Russian soldiers out?
I would say that this conference will be for middle and long-term prospect of view. What we are talking about, the counter-offensive operation or campaign, we trying to prepare it before. For this, we have Ramstein format, and thank you for leadership, Lloyd Austin, our colleague, Secretary of Defense of the United States. So, and this two format, like friend, this is not some kind of competitions between, no, it's equal.
And also, I have a question for Bødskov and Mr. Ben Wallace. Regarding the training of the soldiers, we've heard that the goal is 10,000 soldiers before October. Will this mean that you are now able to train more?
I think we're committed now to really go beyond that. We're going to train more and for longer. So as long as Ukraine needs our support in that training, and depending on the specialty. But we're also now joined by some countries that have already been doing it, like Latvia. They've been engaged. The Dutch have already been engaged with the Germans in Germany previously, and there's a lot more to go. I mean, what we've got today is a confirmation, and in the lead up to this, we have Sweden putting in a significant number of troops. Norway announced at the event today they will put some in. We've got obviously Denmark sending 130. We've got Finland sending. We've got an awful lot of Vikings now in England. It didn't bode well a few hundred years ago when that happened. It's sort of repeat now. So most of the training mission seems to be Nordic. We're joined by obviously the Dutch and the Canadians as well. So we can do more, but we're also keen to make sure it's not just done in the UK. Many of the countries, Slovakia, Poland, Latvia, have been very, very generous even before this event in offering both space and expertise. And right across the international community, specialist training has been ongoing for some months.
And I think it's fair to say that the conference also today have shown a willingness to support the ambitious British project. As Ben rightly said, a number of countries are willing to support with trainers, and Alexei and the Ukrainians will need that in the future. So we'll work with that too, of course. Yes, the BBC, I guess it is.
Thank you very much. Phil from the BBC. If I could ask you first, Minister, just to be clear, this 1.5 billion, is that new money pledged today, or is that previous pledges included? And then on specific commitments, you've announced that you're sending 130 troops to help train Ukrainian forces, extra money to buy weapons. The UK is sending 3 additional MLRSs to Ukraine. Is there anything more concrete that you have come out of this conference with? For Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, you kind of blamed the media for talking about fatigue and tiredness about the war. Isn't there a political reality that the longer this war goes on, the harder it will be to supply Ukraine with weapons, and the political will might not be there? So rather than blame the media, I'm asking you about, isn't it a real political issue for you? And then finally, Minister Reznikov, you specifically set out at the beginning of this conference, you wanted more air defence systems. Did you get them? You wanted capabilities to defend the border with Belarus. Did you get them? You wanted to counter Russia's threat of anti-access area denial. I think I'm right there. Did you get them? And then my last question to you, Minister, is does the Ukrainian Armed Forces have any weapons capable, theoretically, of hitting Crimea? Thank you.
A lot of questions from the BBC. I will start. A lot came out of the conference today, actually. All the participating nation here pledged for support for training activities, demining activities, some with concrete donations. The 1.5 billion euros was brought to the table today. It's money that will be used in 2022, this year and next year. The Danish contribution, you've heard about that already. Others have brought money likewise to the table today. So no doubt about that. I'm sure when we have the follow-up meeting in September, more money will come to help our good friend Alexei here. And a number of other initiatives and paths have been drawn today. So we'll work with demining activities, training activities, and we'll work with concrete productions of new artillery, for example, so that we can help, as Alexei rightly said, the Ukrainian fight in the future. These are production lines that will be open when we find the finances for them, so that we can help the Ukrainian in their fight against the Russian invaders also in the future. And I think it's important to divide the Ramstein Forum, that's very concrete, actual, now and here donations from this. This is midterm and long-term financing of weapons productions that has to be open. And we have to find finance for that, and some have brought something to the table today. And I think 1.5 billion euro is actually a lot, and I'm sure more will come when we have the follow-up meeting in the mid of September. Ben, over to you.
Yeah, so on the 1.5 billion of the international fund, so that's effectively a cash fund, new pledges today from us, 300 million euros, from Denmark of 80 million euros, from Norway as well. So that's nearly just below 500 million euros of new money, of effectively cash, insofar as that's the fund that I said about earlier in that. On hardware, obviously, you know, some of the other announcement of the billion is about the equivalent of how much that is you're putting in. For us, doubling our GMLRS provision. There's actually some other weapon systems in there that I'm not sure what's public and not. I'll let you have the full list of what we can make public. And, you know, this is also an ongoing and enduring thing. One of the reasons these conferences are important is to get people in the room and convert their pledges into something solid, and I think it's really very important that we can do that. Look, and on the subject of fatigue, it's not quite blaming the media, but I don't choose the running order of the BBC website. You know, when Ukraine drops down the websites of the media and you put Celebrity Love Island or whatever it is at number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or you know, whoever, you know, whichever member of the royal family fell over that day, you know, that's not my decision, right? That's the media. And my point is, if you look at the actions of the international community The actions of the international community on Ukraine are still on an upward trajectory. There is no fatigue on the actions. We started off with basic handheld weapons and debates about whether or not training people would be provocative. 6 months later, we're into discussions about how many helicopters the international community has provided, how many fixed-wing aircraft the international community has provided, how many GMLRS and HIMARS. So if you judge us by our actions, the international community, the appetite is still upwards, not downwards. If there was fatigue, Jonathan, I'd expect it to be dipping. This conference showed the opposite.
I'd just like to say that
we have
invested heavily in its coverage of Ukraine.
I know it has, but
there's a lot of questions here you can handle.
you and I will
when
have a
come
go at the
back.
website later.
Alexei Reznikov, the floor is yours.
When was the first Rammstein? The keywords were transition and time. Second Rammstein, the keywords was organic units. Next Rammstein, operational approach for equipment for armed forces of Ukraine. Mission operational approach. So, for example, you see there's some activities with the grain in the Black Sea. It means that we have something for mission operational approach. You saw liberated Snake Island. Then Russian make like gesture of goodwill. But so we use something to liberate Snake Island. And after that we can make a path alongside the seashore with the ships, with the grain to the Bosphorus. And on this conference, we discussed not new weaponry, because the new weaponry, it's a Rammstein platform, or bilateral communication between me and my colleagues ministers. Here, we discussed how to make it sustainable, how to continue support Ukraine, because the warehouses or storage is not unless in every country. For example, Minister of Defense of Germany in one interview told that in Bundeswehr they have not a lot of weaponry to give to Ukraine because they're also thinking about their safety. That's why we need to continue communicate, okay, we need to invest money to production, for example, in our country, Slovakia, Czech Republic, or Latvia, or Litva, and to extend in their capacity to produce more Amos 155, more rockets for MLRS or M270, etc., etc. Or, you know, the last packages from the United States with the NASAMS, it's air defense systems. For them, we need rockets. So we need to produce it and buy it. It's a little bit different. And second question, as I mentioned, Snake Island, probably you remember the breaking the rules of smoking on the warship Moskva. After that, she became the very popular dive site from future days, dive spot in the Black Sea. So I would say that it depends on the distance from what place we will hit them, the military objects. It depends on the place when you will hit it. It depends on their range capability.
Yes, we go to the Independent, I think it is. Or what?
The Telegraph.
The Telegraph, sorry.
This is Telegraph, thank
I've
you.
seen you a number of times.
Dominic
the
Nicholson, Telegraph, thank you.
The floor is yours.
Mr. Reznikov, does the training of Ukrainian forces in Britain and other locations across Europe make those training areas and training staff legitimate targets for Russia? And if I may ask the Foreign Affairs Minister of Iceland, if you're leading on the demining role, will you be putting troops into Ukraine, and does that not run the risk of drawing NATO into direct confrontation with Russia? Thank you.
Ladies first.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, I can answer that question very briefly. We would not. And actually, we couldn't because we don't have any troops. We're the only member of NATO that doesn't have any army, so we don't have any troops. But we will be, this whole project is about cooperation. So it's both regarding material and training. And the idea is to train trainers. So we will start small and we can scale it up. And we know that the demining project is a huge project and it's going to take time, and it's both on land and it's at sea. So I mean, I'm very happy that in this area we have something to contribute. We have experience and knowledge, and we can draw our friends and allies together, like-minded partners, and there's a lot of interest, which I'm also very happy about. So this does not mean that any direct, in the conflict, but this is one of the key priorities to really be able to say we're going to rebuild together Ukraine, and that is not possible without this project. So it's a real, privilege and an honor to have a role in that regard.
We have time for one more question because people have. Sorry.
I cannot see any risks for Great Britain or our partners countries with their training polygons because, for example, in friendly countries near the Ukraine, we have a little bit more important facilities like hub for weaponry, and so they didn't get them, they didn't hit them. So it's madness to starting the next stage of the Third World War from the Russian side. So I'm sure not.
If I make one sentence.
Yes, of course.
Just you use the word, will they not be a legitimate targets? There are no legitimate targets in Ukraine for Russians. That we must remember. Yeah. That's very important.
Okay, last question.
From Reuters. A question for Mr. Wallace and Mr. Resnikov, please. Any fresh assessment of the damage to the Russian airbase in Saki, Crimea, particularly how many planes were damaged and, more importantly, what caused these explosions? And secondly, to Mr. Busko, how many countries pledged these 1.5 billion euros today, and how many more countries could contribute more if they get it through Parliament? Thank you.
Very shortly, unfortunately, we were without our iPhones and devices because it was classified meeting, so I cannot to check my emails and post box. I will check it and I'll see the satellite screens and I will know about the damages.
If I reference open source OSINT, so observational intelligence, it shows a satellite image from today or yesterday, last night, that shows a significant damage to the squadron of, I think, their maritime Russian aircraft there, in the portion of sort of double figures, 10 or 11 planes lost. But that is unconfirmed by my own sources. That's only what is there in open source. I should think those explosions were particularly huge and would have had a big effect on anything within its proximity to it, is what I would say. But I think all these things, time produces the evidence, and we'll see as it develops in the next few days.
Every country participating here today came to Copenhagen because they want to contribute to the fight that the Ukrainians are now having against the Russian invaders. And every country actually came up with very clear signal that they want to participate more, they want to contribute more. And when we have the follow-up meeting in September, I'm sure the number would grow, even the money will grow, the number of trainers sent to the UK will grow, and the number of common initiatives when it comes to demining will grow. So it's not a lack of commitment or initiatives or anything like that. Today have shown that we stand together with Alexei and the Ukrainians in their fight. The commitments towards money, trainers, and demining activities have been really strong. And that has been the good about the conference here in Copenhagen. So that will be my answer. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Have a good warm day here in Copenhagen.